The skies above Nova Haven burned crimson as the Vakar warships descended through the atmosphere. Lieutenant Commander Hannah Park watched in horror from the research outpost nestled in the northern mountains. What had begun as a routine visit to her parents' home had transformed into a nightmare. "They're targeting the residential sectors first," whispered June, the outpost's young technician, his face illuminated by the monitoring screens. Hannah's military training took over as she processed the tactical situation. Nova Haven, humanity's furthest colony with its population of 750,000, had no defensive capabilities. It was a scientific and agricultural settlement, not a military outpost. "We need to gather what data we can and reach the emergency shuttle," she ordered. "Someone needs to warn Earth." The ground shook as plasma bombardment leveled Nova Haven's capital city. Through the observation windows, Hannah could see the methodical pattern of destruction. This wasn't random violence. The attackers were systematically eradicating all traces of human habitation. Hannah turned to the small team gathered in the research station. Besides June, there was Dr. Min, the lead scientist, Suho, the communications specialist, and Jin, the station's medical officer. "We have maybe an hour before they detect this facility," Hannah said. "Download everything, especially any scans of their ships and weapons." The team worked quickly as the world burned around them. Outside, the sky darkened further as smoke from the burning cities filled the air. Hannah tried her personal communicator again, desperately hoping to reach her parents in the Eastern Agricultural District. There was no answer. "Commander, look at this," called Suho. "I've intercepted some of their communications. They're talking about us like we're insects, calling the colony a nest to be cleared." Hannah leaned over his shoulder, her face hardening as she listened to the translated alien chatter. The Vakar, as they called themselves, spoke with clinical detachment about the human infestation they were removing. "They didn't even try to talk to us," Jin said, her voice breaking. "Why? We could have left peacefully." "Because they don't see us as people," Hannah replied, her voice cold. "We're vermin to them." The building shook again as another bombardment hit closer to their location. Dust fell from the ceiling panels. "The shuttle bay is in the lower level," Hannah decided. "Dr. Min, do you have the research data backed up?" The older scientist nodded, holding up a small data crystal. "Everything we've learned about Nova Haven in 10 years, including the agricultural adaptations that could help feed billions on Earth." "Good. We're leaving in 5 minutes." June looked up from his station, eyes wide. "The emergency shuttle only has supplies for 3 people for the journey back to Earth. Then we'll have to make it work for 5, Hannah said firmly. "No one gets left behind." As they gathered essential supplies, alarms began to blare throughout the facility. On the monitors, 2 smaller Vakar ships were now approaching the mountain range. "They found us," Suho said unnecessarily. Hannah led them through the winding corridors of the research station toward the underground shuttle bay. The building shook again, more violently this time. "Structural damage on levels 3 and 4, the station's AI announced calmly. "Recommend immediate evacuation." They reached the shuttle bay just as the first aliens breached the main entrance of the facility. Through the security feeds, Hannah caught glimpses of the Vakar, tall, insectoid creatures with 4 arms and mandibles that clicked as they moved methodically through the human facility. "Get the shuttle powered up," Hannah ordered Suho as she sealed the bay doors. "Jin, Min, load the supplies. June, help me with the defense protocols." Working together, they activated the station's minimal security measures, designed to deter wildlife, not invaders. It wouldn't stop the aliens for long. The shuttle hummed to life as Suho ran through the pre-launch sequence. Outside the bay doors, the sound of alien weapons firing grew louder. "They'll break through in less than a minute," Jun said, his young face pale but determined. Hannah pulled her standard-issue sidearm, the only weapon among them. "Get on board. I'll hold them off until the shuttle's ready." "You can't." Jin started to protest. "That's an order," Hannah snapped. Earth needs to know what happened here. The bay doors began to glow red as the aliens cut through. Hana positioned herself behind a cargo loader, aiming at the weakening metal. "Commander," Suo called from the shuttle ramp. "We're ready for immediate launch." The doors gave way in a shower of molten metal. 3 Vakar warriors pushed through, their compound eyes reflecting the emergency lights. Hana fired, catching the first one in what she hoped was a vital area. The creature stumbled but didn't fall. "Hana, now!" Dr. Min shouted. She fired twice more, then turned and ran for the shuttle. A hot pain lanced through her left leg as she jumped onto the ramp. Jin and Jun pulled her inside as the hatch sealed behind her. "Launch," Hana ordered through gritted teeth. The shuttle's engines roared to life. Jin was already examining the wound on Hana's leg, a glancing hit from an energy weapon that had burned through her uniform. "This will scar, but you'll live," the doctor said. Suho guided the small craft up through the shuttle bay's exit tunnel. As they emerged into the open air, they got their first clear view of the devastation. Nova Haven's 3 major cities were now just smoldering craters. The agricultural fields were burning. Even the lakes seemed to boil from weapons fire. "The atmospheric processors are failing," Dr. Min noted grimly. "Without them, the air will become toxic within days." Hana limped to the cockpit as the shuttle climbed higher. "Any sign they're following us?" "Not yet," Suo replied. "I think we're too small to register as a threat. They're focused on finishing the colony." As the shuttle broke through the cloud layer, they could see the massive Vakar ships hanging in orbit. 7 enormous vessels, shaped like angular wasps, positioned to strike at anything trying to leave the planet. "Stealth mode," Hana ordered. "Kill all non-essential systems. We'll drift past them using the planet's magnetic field for cover." For 6 tense hours, they held their breath as the small shuttle slipped past the alien fleet. The ship's sensors captured detailed images of the Vakar vessels, their design, their weapons ports, their apparent weaknesses. When they were finally clear, Hana let herself look back at Nova Haven one last time. The once blue planet was now shrouded in gray and red, smoke and fire visible even from space. "Set course for Earth," she said quietly. 3 months at maximum speed. "Will they come to Earth next?" June asked, voicing what everyone was thinking. Hana gazed at the alien ships on the monitor. "Not if we warn them in time. Not if Earth is ready." She clutched the data crystal containing evidence of what had happened here. The Vakar had made a terrible mistake. They had attacked humans thinking they were dealing with helpless prey. They would soon learn that humans, when threatened, were predators too. As the shuttle accelerated toward the jump point, Hana made a silent promise to the 750,000 souls left behind. Their deaths would not go unanswered. Earth would know. Earth would come, and the Vakar would regret the day they ever encountered humanity. "Play it again," ordered Admiral Tai, his weathered face betraying no emotion as he watched the footage for the 6th time. The holographic display showed Nova Haven's destruction from multiple angles. Data smuggled back to Earth by Hana Park's damaged shuttle after a 3-month journey on minimal life support. "The Vakar considered the colonists as pests," explained Hana, still gaunt from her ordeal. "We intercepted communications referring to humans as vermin to be cleared for their own settlement plans." The Admiral's composed demeanor finally cracked. "My son was an agricultural engineer on Nova Haven." Hana stood at attention in the Earth Defense Command Center, her uniform hanging loosely on her frame. The 3-month journey back to Earth had taken its toll. She and her 4 companions had survived on quarter rations, recycled water, and minimal oxygen. But they had made it, bringing the terrible truth with them. "Sir, the data we collected suggests the Vakar have done this before. They follow a pattern of expansion through extermination." Admiral Ta nodded slowly, his eyes never leaving the footage of Nova Haven's cities burning. The command center was silent except for the soft hum of computers. 12 other high-ranking officers sat around the table, their faces grim. Lieutenant Commander Park, Admiral Ta finally said, "I want to thank you and your team for your courage. Without this warning, Earth might have been next." Hannah swallowed hard. "Thank you, sir. But we lost 750,000 people. My parents were in the Eastern District when the first strikes hit." The Admiral stood and approached her. For a moment, his official mask slipped, and she saw the pain in his eyes. "My son Jin was working on crop adaptations in the Northern Agricultural Zone. He was 26. A silent understanding passed between them. This was not just a military matter now. It was personal for both of them. The meeting ended, and the officers filed out, already speaking in urgent tones about defense preparations. Hannah was about to leave when Admiral Ta stopped her. "Commander Park, I need someone who has seen these creatures, who understands what we're facing. I want you as my tactical advisor." "Sir, I'm not sure I'm qualified." "You've seen them. You know what they're capable of," he told her. "I need that insight." Within days, the news of Nova Haven's destruction spread across Earth and its inner colonies. The unedited footage was released to the public, showing the systematic extermination of the human settlement. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Hannah watched from a hospital bed as the news reports showed massive crowds gathering in cities around the world. Ancient rivalries between nations dissolved overnight. Countries that had been enemies for generations now pledged military support to each other. "I've never seen anything like it," said Dr. Min, who was in the next bed recovering from their journey. "It's like the whole human race just became one tribe." "Fear will do that," Hannah replied, "and anger." But it was more than fear driving humanity's response. The Vakar had awakened something primal in the human psyche, a collective determination not to go quietly into extinction. 10 days after their return, Hannah was called to her first strategy meeting as the Admiral's advisor. She was still underweight, but had regained enough strength to stand without assistance. The Earth Defense Council had expanded to include representatives from every nation and colony. Dr. Song, Earth's leading physicist, stood before the assembled military and political leaders. Behind him, a holographic display showed a new weapon design. "Project Nemesis," he announced. "We've modified our deep space mining technology. The gravity drills used for asteroid mining can be weaponized. The Vakar have energy shields, but nothing stops a localized gravitational singularity." Murmurs spread through the room as Dr. Song explained the science. The gravity drills, originally designed to break apart asteroids for mining, could be focused into narrow beams, what he called gravity lenses. "These weapons don't just damage a target," Dr. Song continued. "They fundamentally distort space around it. No shield or armor can protect against that." Admiral Tad turned to Hannah. "What do you think, Commander, based on what you saw of their technology?" Hannah studied the schematics. The Vakar rely heavily on energy shielding. They didn't expect resistance on Nova Haven, but their ships appeared heavily armored. "This might be our best chance to penetrate those defenses." "How quickly can these be produced?" asked the president of the United Earth Alliance. "We've already begun converting mining ships," Dr. Song replied. "We can have 20 gravity lance platforms operational within 2 months." "Not fast enough," Admiral Ta said firmly. "I want 50 in 2 months, and I want warships to carry them." Across Earth's territories, civilian vessels were retrofitted with military capabilities. Mining ships became weapon platforms. Passenger liners were converted to troop transports. Colonial militia trained alongside veteran soldiers. In orbital shipyards, the first dedicated human warships took shape. Hannah spent her days reviewing everything they knew about the Vakar, their ships, their tactics, their language. She worked closely with Suo, who had become an expert on Vakar communications during their journey home. "Their language is revealing," Suo told her one evening, as they studied intercepted transmissions. "They don't just see us as enemies. They genuinely consider us a lower life form, like we might view bacteria. That's their weakness," Hannah realized. "They won't expect us to be a serious threat. They'll underestimate what we can do." 60 days after the news reached Earth, Hannah stood beside Admiral Ta on the bridge of the EDS Vengeance, Earth's first purpose-built warship. Through the viewports, she could see dozens of other vessels, an armada created in record time. "We have 47 ships equipped with gravity lances," reported Captain Kim, the vessel's commanding officer. "Another 35 armed with conventional weapons. 20 troop carriers with special forces ready for boarding actions." Admiral Ta nodded in satisfaction. "And the Nemesis drones?" 200 units ready for deployment, sir. They'll adapt to Vakar tactics in real time." Hannah looked around at the bridge crew, men and women from different countries, colonies, and backgrounds, all united by a common purpose. She saw determination in their eyes, but also fear. Many had never been in combat before. "Permission to address the fleet, sir?" she asked the admiral. He nodded and motioned to the communications officer. "Channel open, Commander." Hannah took a deep breath before speaking. "This is Lieutenant Commander Hannah Park. 3 months ago, I watched the Vakar destroy Nova Haven and kill 750,000 innocent people. I made a promise then that they would pay for what they did. Today, we begin to keep that promise." She paused, remembering the burning skies above Nova Haven. "The Vakar think we are vermin to be exterminated. They think we will be easy to kill. They are wrong. They have never faced a united humanity. They have never understood what we become when threatened. They destroyed one colony, but in doing so, they awakened Earth. That was their mistake, and it will be their last." As the fleet prepared to depart, Hannah looked at Admiral Ta. The question that no one dared ask hung heavy in the air between them. Was humanity already too late? "We will find them, and we will make them pay," the admiral said quietly, as if reading her thoughts. "For your parents, for my son, for everyone on Nova Haven." The order was given. The fleet engaged their engines. Earth's retribution was on its way. The human flotilla emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Vakar frontier. 57 ships, a mixture of refitted mining vessels and hastily constructed warships, faced the ornate defenses of the alien outpost. "They're hailing us," reported Communications Officer Da. Audio only. A chittering, harsh voice filled the bridge. "Human vermin, you have violated Imperium space. Your extinction is already decreed." Admiral Ta nodded to Hannah. "Show them what happens when you murder our people." The first gravity lance activated, a pencil-thin beam that carried destructive potential never before deployed in warfare. Where it touched the Vakar station, matter compressed to impossible density before collapsing inward. The alien defenders had no defense against weapons that distorted space itself. The beam cut through the center of the Vakar defense station. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, like paper folding in on itself, the massive structure began to collapse. Metal and composite materials crumpled as if made of cloth, drawn inexorably toward the point where the beam had struck. On the bridge of the EDS Vengeance, stunned silence gave way to quiet murmurs. No one had expected such complete devastation from their first strike. "Target destroyed," reported the weapons officer, her voice steady despite the shock evident on her face. Admiral Ta stood tall, his eyes fixed on the view screen. "Send the message to all Vakar frequencies." Communications Officer Day nodded and activated the prepared transmission. Admiral Tay's voice echoed across space to every Vakar receiver in range. "This is Admiral Tai of Earth Defense Force. You destroy our colony at Nova Haven and murdered 750,000 civilians without warning or mercy. We have come to deliver humanity's response. Your extinction is not decreed, but your defeat is certain. Surrender now or face our justice." Alarms blared as Vakar ships emerged from behind the planet's moon. 8 combat vessels approaching, reported the sensor officer. Energy weapons charging. Admiral Tad turned to Hannah. "Commander Park, your mission begins now. May your parents' spirits guide your hand." Hannah saluted sharply, then turned and rushed from the bridge. Her team was already waiting at the shuttle bay. 20 Special Forces soldiers handpicked for this mission. As the main fleet engaged the Vakar ships, Hannah's shuttle detached from the Vengeance and accelerated toward a specific target. Shadow to Fleet Command, we are proceeding to target, Hannah reported as their small craft sped toward a damaged Vakar vessel that had been hit by conventional weapons but not destroyed. Around them, space lit up with weapons fire. The human fleet had spread out, forcing the Vakar to divide their attention. 3 more gravity lances fired, each striking a different enemy ship. One Vakar vessel simply vanished, compressed to a point smaller than a grain of sand. The others began evasive maneuvers, but their movements seemed uncoordinated, confused. They didn't expect us to have this technology, Hannah told her team as they approached the damaged Vakar command ship. They thought we would be easy prey. The Shadow's pilot, Lieutenant Jun, guided their craft into the Vakar ship's damaged docking bay. The shuttle sensors showed that the bay was still pressurized, but emergency force fields were flickering. Atmosphere is breathable but thin, reported Sergeant Yun, checking her equipment. Gravity is slightly higher than Earth standard. Hannah checked her weapon, a new design that fired projectiles at hypersonic speeds. Unlike energy weapons, these couldn't be blocked by the personal shields the Vakar were known to use. Remember, we need prisoners and data, she reminded her team. But don't take unnecessary risks. These creatures killed Nova Haven without mercy. The shuttle doors opened, and the strike team moved out in practiced formation. The Vakar docking bay was larger than human designs, with strange organic curves to the architecture. The air smelled faintly of ammonia and something like cinnamon. They encountered the first Vakar defenders at the entrance to the main corridor. The aliens were taller than humans by nearly a meter, with 6 limbs, 4 arms, and 2 powerful legs. Their bodies were covered in a green-brown exoskeleton, and their heads featured compound eyes that reflected the emergency lighting. Human vermin, chittered one of the aliens, raising a weapon. Sergeant Yun fired first, her hypersonic round punching through the Vakar's personal shield, as if it weren't there. The alien fell with a high-pitched whine. Move forward, Hannah ordered. Control center should be 3 levels up. The team fought their way through the ship's strange corridors. Unlike human vessels with their practical, straight passages, the Vakar ship seemed designed for form as much as function, with flowing curves and ornate decorations even in maintenance areas. The aliens fought with increasing desperation. Several times, Hannah heard them communicating among themselves, their tone becoming more frantic as the humans advanced. "They're shocked," translated Specialist Han, who had studied Vakar language from the Nova Haven recordings. "They keep saying impossible, and how can vermin fight back?" When they reached the control center, they found 5 Vakar officers barricaded behind energy shields. Hannah stepped forward. "Surrender, and you will be treated according to Earth War conventions," she said, while Han translated into the chittering Vakar language. The lead alien, distinguished by gold markings on its exoskeleton, made a sound that the translation software identified as laughter. "We do not surrender to lesser beings," it replied. "The Imperium has cleansed worlds for 10,000 years. You are merely the latest infestation." Hannah nodded to her team's technical specialist. Plan B. Specialist Jai activated a small device that emitted a focused EMP pulse, designed specifically to disrupt Vakar's shield technology based on what they had learned from Nova Haven. The aliens' protective barriers flickered and died. Before the Vakar could react, stun grenades landed among them. The special charges delivered a neural shock tailored to Vakar physiology. All 5 aliens collapsed. "Secure them," Hannah ordered. "Jai, get into their computer systems." While her team bound the unconscious aliens, Hannah watched as Jai interfaced their translation technology with the Vakar systems. The alien script began to transform into readable text on their screens. "Commander, you need to see this," Jai said after several minutes, his face pale. Hannah looked at the screen and felt her blood run cold. The data showed records of cleansing operations spanning centuries. Nova Haven wasn't the first. The Vakar had systematically eliminated 3 other spacefaring species that had the misfortune to settle in regions the Imperium considered their territory. One race called the Nidari, another named Kelnok, a third simply designated as Species 7. All gone, reduced to footnotes in Vakar expansion records. They call it evolutionary imperative, Jai explained, still translating. They believe they have the right, even the duty, to eliminate competition for resources. Hannah downloaded everything they could access and transmitted it directly to Admiral Tai on a secure channel. His response came back immediately. Return to the fleet with your prisoners. We have what we need. When they rejoined the main battle group, Hannah found the Admiral standing before a holographic display of the Vakar territory. 3 worlds were highlighted. Colonies recently established by the Imperium. 3 Vakar colony worlds will experience what Nova Haven experienced. Admiral Ta said when Hannah entered the bridge. No more, no less. Hannah looked at the display, thinking of her parents, of all the lives lost on Nova Haven, of the other species wiped out by Vakar expansion. Is that justice, sir? She asked quietly. The Admiral's face was grim. No, Commander. It's a message. They need to understand the consequences of their actions. They need to feel what we felt. The fleet regrouped, tending to damaged ships and wounded personnel. The Vakar outpost and all 8 of their defensive ships had been destroyed or captured. It was a complete victory, but only the first battle in what promised to be a bitter war. As Hannah watched the preparations for the next phase of the campaign, she wondered what kind of future awaited humanity among the stars. The Vakar had shown them that the galaxy could be a cruel place, but humans had proven they would not be easily exterminated. The Vakar's first mistake had been attacking Nova Haven. Their second was underestimating humanity's response. Soon, they would learn the full cost of both errors. Impossible. The Vakar Emperor's mandibles clicked in agitation as reports of human victories filled the royal chamber. These creatures had barely established interstellar travel. How have they penetrated our outer defenses? The Emperor's 6 limbs moved restlessly across the polished stone of his throne. Around him, military advisors stood with heads bowed, afraid to meet his compound eyes. The massive chamber, with its high ceilings carved from the bedrock of the Vakar homeworld, had never before hosted such grim news. 3 colony worlds lost, reported General Kriz, his voice a low buzz of shame. The humans used weapons that bend gravity itself. Our shields were useless, and they took prisoners, added another advisor. No species has ever dared capture Vakar warriors before. The Emperor rose to his full height, nearly 3 meters tall. His exoskeleton gleamed with the gold and purple markings of 10,000 years of royal lineage. They are vermin, he hissed. Clever vermin, but vermin nonetheless. Recall the Grand Fleet. We will crush them before they reach the homeworld. Far from the Vakar throne room, aboard the EDS Vengeance, Commander Hannah Park studied holographic maps of the Vakar home system. After 3 months of fighting, humanity's forces had pushed deep into enemy territory. The cost had been high, 27 ships lost, thousands of soldiers killed, but the advance continued. Admiral Ta entered the strategy room. His face was lined with fatigue, but his eyes burned with determination. Our intelligence network has confirmed the location of the Vakar homeworld, he announced. They call it Vakaris Prime. Hannah examined the new data that appeared on the display. The Vakar homeworld was protected by an extensive defense grid, hundreds of orbital platforms, a massive fleet, and planetary shields. A direct assault would cost too many lives, she said, even with the gravity lances. The Admiral nodded. That's why we're not launching a direct assault. We need someone to infiltrate the planet and disable their defense grid from within. He looked at Hannah, and she understood. I'll need a small team, she said without hesitation. 6 operators, maximum. Any more would be detected. You understand what you're volunteering for. Admiral Tai asked. The chances of returning are low, Hannah finished for him. But so were my chances of escaping Nova Haven. I survived that. I'll survive this. 2 days later, Hannah briefed her hand-picked team aboard the stealth vessel Shadow. The ship had been specially modified with captured Vakar technology to mask its signature from enemy sensors. The Vakar don't understand human psychology, Hannah explained during the mission briefing. They expect logical self-preservation. They don't comprehend that we will sacrifice everything to prevent another Nova Haven. Her team consisted of 5 specialists. Jun, the pilot. Yun, weapons expert. Jai, technical specialist. Han, language expert. And Min, the medic who had escaped Nova Haven with her. We'll approach during their lunar eclipse, Hannah continued, pointing to the map. Their sensors will be partially blinded by their largest moon. We'll land in the northern mountain range, where our captured intelligence suggests minimal security. And once we're on the ground, asked Sergeant Yun. Hannah displayed a schematic of a massive underground facility. This is the central control nexus for their planetary defense grid. We infiltrate, plant these devices. She held up a small cylinder and disable their shields. Then the fleet moves in. As they prepared for departure, Admiral Tai delivered a final message. Your mission will determine the future of this conflict. If you succeed, we end this war on our terms. If you fail, we won't fail, Hannah said firmly. The Shadow detached from the fleet and proceeded toward Vakarus Prime under complete communications blackout. The small vessel slipped past the outer sensor rings, using the planet's moon for cover just as planned. Meanwhile, the main fleet prepared for the final confrontation. Alongside the conventional warships, humanity's secret weapon deployed. Autonomous hunter-killer drones that analyzed Vakar tactics and adapted faster than the aliens could respond. For each drone destroyed, 2 more incorporated the data and became more lethal. The drones will keep their defense forces occupied, Admiral Ta told his captains. Draw attention away from the Shadow's approach. The first wave of drones engaged the outer defenses of Vakarus Prime. The machines were relentless, targeting weak points in the Vakar formations and sacrificing themselves to create openings. On the Shadow, Hannah watched the battle unfold from a distance. The small ship shuddered as it entered the planet's atmosphere. Stealth systems holding, reported Jun from the pilot's seat. No sign they've detected us. The mountains of Vakarus Prime were jagged and bare, unlike the lush landscapes of Nova Haven. The Shadow landed in a narrow valley, concealed by rock formations. Atmosphere is breathable with filters, Min confirmed after analyzing the outside air. Higher oxygen content than Earth, but also traces of sulfur compounds. Hannah led her team from the ship, each member carrying minimal equipment to avoid detection. The gravity was slightly stronger than Earth's, making their movements feel sluggish at first. 2 kilometers to the facility entrance, Chai said, checking the scanner. They moved through the alien landscape in silence. Overhead, the sky occasionally lit up with distant explosions as the battle raged in orbit. The diversion was working. Ground forces were being called up to support the space defense, leaving the remote regions less guarded. At the entrance to the facility, disguised as a natural cave, 2 Vakar guards stood watch. Hannah signaled to Yun, who fired 2 silent projectiles. The guards fell without raising an alarm. Han, can you operate their security systems? Hannah asked as they approached the entrance. Han examined the control panel. It's similar to the ones we captured. Give me a minute. The door slid open, revealing a long corridor that sloped downward into the planet. The team moved quickly, using captured Vakar access codes to bypass security checkpoints. Something feels wrong, Jai whispered as they descended deeper. Security is too light. They never expected enemies to reach their homeworld, Min suggested. Arrogance is their weakness. They reached a vast chamber filled with humming machinery, the central nexus of the planetary defense grid. Enormous power conduits connected to a central pillar that pulsed with energy. Plant the devices around the main column, Hannah ordered. We need to be precise. As they worked, a voice came over the facility's communication system. In orbit above, Admiralty's forces had moved into position. Admiralty's voice echoed across all frequencies as Earth's forces surrounded the Vakar homeworld. This is humanity's single offer. Surrender, pay reparations for Nova Haven, and recognize our sovereign right to exist among the stars. The team paused, listening to the broadcast that was being transmitted throughout the Vakar system. Then, another voice responded. The Emperor himself. The Emperor's response was swift and arrogant. We do not negotiate with vermin. Alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. They've detected us, Jai shouted. Complete the mission, Hannah ordered calmly. We knew this was likely a one-way trip. As they rushed to place the remaining devices, doors around the chamber slid open. Vakar security forces poured in, weapons raised. Surrender, humans, chittered the lead guard. You have infiltrated the sacred heart of the Imperium. Hannah stepped forward, hands raised. We surrender. The guards moved cautiously toward them. When they were close enough, Hannah gave the signal. Her team dropped to the floor as she activated the special EMP device hidden in her boot. The pulse disabled the Vakar weapons and temporarily stunned the guards. Now, she shouted. The team sprang into action, finishing the placement of their devices. Above them, the battle intensified as the Vakar launched their counterattack against the human fleet. Devices planted, reported Jai. 30 seconds to activation. More guards were arriving. The team took defensive positions around the central column, determined to protect their mission until completion. It was an honor serving with you all, Hannah said as they prepared for their last stand. As the Vakar forces closed in, the devices activated. Instead of an explosion, a soft pulse of energy spread throughout the facility. The defense grid's control systems began to shut down one by one. In orbit, Admiral Ta watched as the planetary shields flickered and died. All ships, advance. Remember Nova Haven. On the planet below, Hannah and her team fought desperately, knowing that whatever happened to them, they had succeeded. The war would end today, one way or another. The final battle raged above the Vakar homeworld. Earth's ships, despite heavy losses, maintained their position. The gravity lances stood ready to render the planet uninhabitable, just as the Vakar had done to Nova Haven. Aboard the flagship Vengeance, Admiral Ta watched the tactical display as the human fleet surrounded Vakaris Prime. With the planetary shields down, thanks to Hannah's team, the alien world lay exposed and vulnerable. All gravity lance platforms in position, sir, reported Captain Kim. Awaiting your command to fire. The Admiral's hand hovered over the console. One command would unleash devastation upon the Vakar homeworld. Billions would die in minutes as their cities collapsed into singularities. It would be justice for Nova Haven. An eye for an eye. Hold position, he ordered. Maintain target lock, but do not fire. On the planet below, Commander Hannah Park and her team fought their way deeper into the planetary defense complex. They had accomplished their primary mission, disabling the shields, but Vakar reinforcements had cut off their escape route. This way, called Specialist Jai, pointing to a narrow corridor. I'm detecting a massive power source. They moved cautiously through the ancient facility. The architecture here was different from the rest of the complex, older, with strange symbols carved into the walls. These markings don't match any known Vakar language, observed Han as they advanced. They're much older. The corridor opened into a vast chamber filled with humming machinery. At its center stood a towering crystalline structure that pulsed with blue-green light. What is this place? Whispered Sergeant Yun. Jai approached a control panel, his fingers moving quickly across the alien interface. It's some kind of artificial intelligence system. Ancient. The power signatures suggest it's been operating for at least 15,000 years. Before the Vakar achieved spaceflight, Hannah noted. As Jai continued to access the system, data began streaming across their display screens. Historical records, genetic manipulation charts, psychological conditioning programs, all focused on the Vakar species. Admiral, Hannah reported through their secure channel, we found evidence that the Vakar have been manipulated. There's an artificial intelligence system, ancient, possibly predating the Vakar civilization. It's been selectively breeding them for aggression and xenophobia for thousands of years. She sent the data they had discovered, records showing how the AI had guided Vakar evolution, promoting aggressive traits and eliminating empathetic individuals from the gene pool. Generation after generation, the AI had shaped the Vakar into the perfect expansionist species. It calls itself the Guardian, Jai explained, still translating. It was created by a species that went extinct long ago. The predecessor. They programmed it to ensure their legacy would continue. By creating monsters who destroy other civilizations. Yun asked in disbelief. The programming became corrupted over time, Jai continued. It interpreted preserve our legacy as eliminate all competition. The revelation presented Admiral Ta with an impossible moral dilemma. The Vakar had committed genocide, yet they had also been victims of manipulation across generations. Can you neutralize this AI? He asked over the comm. Hannah looked at Jai, who nodded confidently. Already done, Hannah confirmed. We introduced a cascade failure into its primary systems. Their defense grid is also disabled. The planet is at your mercy. There was a long silence from the Admiral. Every officer on the bridge of the Vengeance understood the weight of the decision before him. They had come seeking retribution for Nova Haven. They had the power to annihilate the Vakar homeworld with a single command. The Admiral's decision would define humanity's place in the galaxy. Target military installations only, he finally ordered. I want the Vakar civilization intact to face justice, not extinction. Relief washed over Hannah's face as she heard the order. Around her, the ancient chamber began to power down as the AI systems failed. We need to move, she told her team. When the Vakar realize what's happening, this facility will be their first target. Above the planet, Earth's forces began precision strikes against Vakar military bases and shipyards. The gravity lances, capable of destroying entire cities, were instead focused on defensive installations and weapon platforms. The Vakar Emperor, expecting total annihilation, had retreated to his underground bunker. When human special forces breached the facility, they found him surrounded by his royal guard. If you wish to destroy our species, you will have to begin with me, the Emperor declared, his mandibles raised in defiance. Our orders are to bring you in alive, replied the human commander. You will stand trial for your crimes against Nova Haven and other species. The Emperor's capture marked the end of organized Vakar resistance. Without their central command, and with the Guardian AI deactivated, their forces quickly surrendered. When the Emperor was brought aboard the flagship, he seemed genuinely confused by human restraint. Admiral Ta met him in the secure holding area. Why do you not eliminate us completely? The Emperor demanded, his compound eyes reflecting the harsh lights of the brig. Because we're not you, Admiral Ta replied simply. The Admiral presented evidence of the Guardian Eye's manipulation of Vakar society. For the first time in his life, the Emperor was forced to confront the possibility that his species' natural superiority was an artificial construct, a lie programmed into them over thousands of years. In the following months, human scientists worked alongside cooperative Vakar to deprogram the xenophobic conditioning that had driven their society. Without the Guardian's influence, younger Vakar began to question centuries of expansionist ideology. 1 year later, Hannah stood on the recovering surface of Nova Haven. Terraforming procedures had begun to heal the atmospheric damage. The land that had been scorched barren was now showing the first signs of life again. She walked through what had once been the colony's central plaza. Memorial stones now stood where buildings had been, each bearing the names of those lost in the massacre. Her parents' names were among them, in a quiet corner near what had once been their home. A group of scientists worked nearby, both human and Vakar. The aliens moved awkwardly in the presence of humans, still adjusting to their new role as partners rather than exterminators. It was part of their reparations to help rebuild what they had destroyed. Commander Park called one of the human scientists. "We're ready for the planting ceremony." Hana joined the small gathering. In her hands, she carried a preservation container from Earth's botanical archives, seeds of Nova Haven's native tree fern, collected during the colony's founding 50 years earlier. She knelt and planted the first seed in the newly restored soil, pressing it gently into the earth. "We return," she whispered. "We remember. We rebuild." A young Vakar approached, its movements hesitant. Unlike the warriors Hana had fought, this one's exoskeleton was still soft and pale. A scientist, not a soldier. "I wish to understand," it said in carefully practiced human speech. "Why did you spare us? Our leaders ordered the destruction of your colony. By your own laws, you had the right to destroy us in return." Hana looked up at the alien, seeing not the enemy she had fought, but a being capable of change. "Because justice isn't the same as revenge," she replied. "Your people were manipulated for thousands of years. Breaking that cycle required mercy, not more destruction." Around them, the first green shoots were already emerging from the soil, reaching toward the sky, just as humanity was reaching toward a new understanding of its place in the galaxy. The Vakar had made their first mistake in attacking Nova Haven. Their second was assuming humans would respond with the same blind hatred that had driven them. Instead, humanity had demonstrated strength through restraint, power through mercy. And in doing so, they had not just won a war, they had begun to build a peace. The end.